some type of altercation with some gentlemen prior to my sons coming to visit their home. And when my two sons got there, they were ambushed and murdered.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
My son was shot 2 times in his chest with an Afghanistan rifle. And
I'm so
they killed
sorry.
$3 in a pack of cigarettes what they killed my son for.
Mrs. Watts, the potential grandmother of a child, brings the child's mother to court to determine paternity. The potential father of the child was murdered a few months prior, and she's come to court to determine the truth for her son. However, the mother of the court is 100% sure that the plaintiff's son is the father of her child.
As to determine the truth, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Sherelle, you say that you are 100% sure that Mrs. Watts' son, Alex, fathered your baby, Caden, and you are here to prove it.
The plaintiff says that she was told that her son had an involvement in a shooting. She got there, and that's when she knew that both her sons were there. They went to visit someone who apparently had an altercation with some people prior to her son's arrival. But when they got there, they were murdered.
Some type of altercation with some gentlemen prior to my sons coming to visit their home. And when my two sons got there, they were ambushed and murdered.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's difficult and it's understandable, fouled with paternity doubts. The defendant says she and the late Alex were in love. She says that they were in a 3-year on and off relationship and planned on having a family together. It's unfortunate that it was cut short too soon.
Well, he did get to know his father.
Yes.
The man you say is his biological father before he passed away.
Yes.
And what was their relationship like?
The relationship was like a father and son bond relationship.
The defendant brought a video to court to show the nature of the relationship between Alex and her son, Caden. She says that Alex did accept Caden as his, and they were almost inseparable before he died.
My son had went away for some time, and before he went away, he told me that Alexis was pregnant. I guess this was during the time that they were on their breakup. He was involved with someone else. And then when she had Kate...
Apparently, there was a break in which they separated. That's a part of the reason for the plaintiff's doubts. There was also a text message exchanged between the plaintiff and the defendant when she was pregnant that basically sums up all the doubts.
Are you pregnant by Alex? And Miss Sherelle responds, I don't really know, I don't believe so, but at this moment, I don't know, I have to get a blood test.
That was my response because
The defendant says at that time she had a one-night stand with someone else and she told Alex. But then a week after she had the one-night stand, she found out that she was pregnant. This is the reason she says she didn't know.
I know it takes a little longer for the at-home pregnancy test to detect a pregnancy, so I did say I didn't know because I know what I did and Alex knows what I did, but I also do believe he is because he, I know what happened and I know at the...
Apparently, both of them decided to keep the baby a secret mainly because of Alex. She says her family didn't know that she was pregnant because Alex, who is a secretive person, begged her to. His mother did confirm that Alex was, in fact, very secretive because he didn't like other people in his business.
And so you can see how your son may have said, let's keep this to ourselves.
He was private about other people being in his business. I know him and I had a good relationship, and he talked with his stepdad a lot. After...
The plaintiff says that Alex did, in fact, bring the baby to her house, but he never referred to the baby as his. Apparently, the defendant didn't call anybody that she was in labor, and she did it all for 2 months. Even on the birth certificate, there's no last name that's related to any of the supposed parties.
I gave him a friend of mine's last name only because I have a female's last name. I didn't want to give him a female's last name. And when the time came for me and Alex to get a blood test, I told him we can go down to the court, we can pay.
The defendant later comes out to say that she may have had a little doubt in her mind about it, and that's why she did what she did. She didn't want to make a mistake. She says the reason she agreed to keep it a secret was because she had 2 other kids at the time and she wasn't stable enough.
The time I stayed with my mama. I know my mama was gonna be disappointed. She didn't want me having no more kids and I still stay in her house and I'm not stable enough to be out on my own and take care of my own kids,
Exactly.
So it was like a secret. I think because I kept it a secret from my family, he just was like,
Apparently, the plaintiff never went to see the baby, and the reason is because she didn't want to be attached to the baby and then find out that the baby is not her grandson. Judge Lake decides to check the results to see if they are related.
And Caden is 0.006%. You are not related.
A distraught mother is searching for who her child's father is, and she searched up to the point of finding a potential father, but apparently the potential father had been killed in a raid. So she's in court with the mother of the potential father, Miss Briggs.
DNA results to determine the father of your 3-year-old daughter, Nora.
Yes, Your Honor.
Today, you say you've brought your daughter's potential grandmother to court in an effort to end your search for her dad.
Yes, Your Honor.
The defendant, Miss Briggs, says her son has never mentioned that he has a child anywhere, and he never had any idea that he could possibly have a child somewhere. Neither did he mention even having sexual relations with her.
Ms. Briggs, you are Nora's possible grandmother. You claim your son had no idea he may have fathered a child with the plaintiff. In fact, you say he never even mentioned having sexual relations with Ms. Quiller.
The plaintiff says she's had 2 other people tested and they all came out negative. She says the late Mr. Briggs will be the last and final hope of paternity for her daughter. She says that she and the defendant's son were not even in a relationship or nothing. They were friends, and that particular night, they had sexual relations.
It was a one-time thing. It happened one time, and we socialized, but we weren't that close not to have relations with one another, and that particular night we did. That's why it happened that one.
Apparently, the defendant is very well aware of the plaintiff. She says they were in the same neighborhood, and she used to have conversations with one another. She says that she's a good person, and when she finally told her that there's a possibility and she met the child, it was magical.
It was like an electric shock went through my body, like it was meant to be.
Don't be sorry, it's okay. Take your time.
But other than that,
The plaintiff says that her daughter deserves to know if her daughter has a family outside of her, and the defendant deserves to know if she has a grandchild, and she was glad that the response was positive, which gave her hope.
and told her it's a possibility that Charlie could be the father of my child. She looked at her, she picked her up, and she just burst into tears.
And at that point, she told you that her son...
She looked at her and she said, "This is my..."
The defendant says she's had dreams of her son showing her a child, and then a few days later, here comes the plaintiff with a child claiming it's her son's. She says her son was killed in a home invasion shot with an Afghanistan rifle.
My son was shot 2 times in his chest with an Afghanistan rifle. And
I'm so
they killed
sorry.
$3 in a pack of cigarettes what they killed my son for.
The plaintiff didn't even know that Mr. Charles had died until she told her. Mr. Charles's ex-girlfriend also came to court to say that there might be a chance, but she doesn't sense it. She says when he died, he only had her own child as his.
I mean, I'm not gonna sit there and say they don't like have similarities, because I mean, it's a little bit of something there, but I don't really know. I'm not 100% sure on it.
And so you're doubtful as you look at pictures of...
Mrs. Briggs' daughter, Jasmine, also came to court to give her testimony. She says that her brother had told her about the plaintiff, but he never mentioned having a baby with her. She says that the plaintiff child looks nothing like them and their family. Apparently, there was another young lady who says that her baby is for Mr. Charles, but then she ran off to someone else. And that has hurt her mother.
We hadn't had a DNA test yet, but, she ran off and told somebody else that, the baby was his. I'm just trying.
And at that time, your mother felt like she potentially had a grandchild.
It hurt her so bad, and I'm just trying.
The defendant says that she really connected with the young lady. That she took care of her, she was at the funeral, but then they had a baby shower and she never showed up and she just disappeared and never said anything to them again. Wow. And then she went to visit her to see the baby, but then something happened with the man she claims is the father of her child.
Going on, and I showed him a picture of my son, and he was looking at the baby and looking at my son, and he looked at her, and he just broke down into tears because the baby looks like my son. But I can't just tell this woman, okay, I want to see what am I supposed to do? So I walked away.
It's understandable that the other ladies are protective of the defendant. That kind of thing could hurt a lot. She says she's formed a relationship with the plaintiff's child, and she also has a relationship with the other child of Mr. Charles. The plaintiff says there are no other possibilities that she can recall. Judge Lake decides to check the results.
It has been determined by this court, Ms. Briggs, you are not her grandmother. So sorry.